Hello and welcome to the Week 18 version of the Lines Megapod. It is Matt Brown. It is Adam Candee. It is Stephen Andress. And we are going to do our best to navigate through this very interesting and really, in all the years I've been doing this, most confusing last week of the season. I was about to say week 18. We've only had that for a couple of years, but last week of the season, I'll put it that way. Usually we would have a lot of different motivational kind of angles in place, and things were very clear as to which teams were going to play starters and not. And we would at least have a pretty decent idea of which teams are going to be punting things off, but not as clear this week. And certainly a lot of that has to do with an unprecedented situation that went down on Monday night, where this is the first time for us getting to you guys. We're not going to belabor the point. Of course, you're sports fans. You've been watching this all week long. We can't say anything that hasn't already been said and hadn't already been heard, but do at least want to acknowledge we are very, very excited about the developments there in the Damar Hamlin situation. And, Stephen, Adam, I'll give each of you guys just, a few seconds here to kind of give your piece here. But for me, now that things are, moving in the right direction, I understand not postponing these week 18 games and things like that. I mean, according to even Damar's family, he's, first thing he did was ask about, who won the game and that he would want the teams to move forward and things like that. And, I'm not one to judge outside of that. If the guy that we would supposedly be delaying a whole week of NFL games for says no, games should be played, football should go on as usual, then I'm going to sit back and let him make that decision. But Stephen, I'll give you a few seconds here at the top of the show.
Yeah, sure. I was actually in the stadium with one of our staff members, Brett Gibbons, when it went down, and the 24, 48 hours after that, it was hard for me. I was trying to figure out how I didn't feel like handicapping any game, right? Like all I cared about was like this poor kid, this 24-year-old was okay. And thank God he's looking great at this point. And what changed my attitude around was going back and listening to his personal story and listening to some of the interviews he did leading up to this horrific event. And he just had this total mindset of seizing the day every single day, making the most of it. He was quoted on a Bills interview saying, "You never know how long we're going to have to be able to do this. So take advantage of it, enjoy every moment." And that's kind of got me back in a great positive mindset to just, we come to sports as a release from everyday life, right? And it's one of the more, this podcast is the most fun thing I do every week. Whether it's work or personal life. And I think we're fortunate to be in a position to cover sports for a living. And I think it's awesome that we have now somebody who's come from a complete unknown to being somebody who's going to be a positive force for change, and his charity as well, having more than $6 million is just amazing, helping kids in tough neighborhoods get some toys around the holidays. I think it's turning into a great feel-good story now after what was feared to be an awful story.
Adam, I know you've dealt with something like this before. I mean, it's not that it gets any easier, obviously. I can only imagine, though, just watching it play out on television, you were probably thinking, oh, man, I can't believe this might happen again.
Yeah, Matt, and you're referencing the fact that 20 years ago, I covered a high school football game in which it did turn out differently. And a young man lost his life playing the game that he loved. And, much like Stephen was talking about being there in Cincinnati, I was at the field where they took the ambulance away. And then I was also there at the funeral when the young man was lowered into the ground. And it never makes any sense in any of these situations, right? We watch these games and we watch young men performing at the absolute peak of their athleticism and, in theory, health. And we at least willingly put aside our knowledge that this risk exists. And so all the respect to, to the Bills medical staff who've gotten all of the deserved praise for the quick reactions that they had. And, for us here in our little corner of the world, we bet on sports because we are part of a community in a way. And I don't mean to make it too rosy or anything like that, but we're all looking for some sort of connection to these games, right? We're all looking for some way to feel connected to the people around us. And the fact that we're doing this podcast is a way where we're trying to build our little community of folks who listen to this and have, put a little bit of life and personality to all of these things. So I'll finish it with this. For me, when this became at least acceptable for us was yesterday when they did the press conference with Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. And the question was asked to both of them, are the Buffalo Bills ready to play a game? And Josh Allen basically looked at Sean McDermott like, I've got this one, and said, yeah, we're ready to play a game right now. And when the young men who are the closest companions of Damar Hamlin say, you know what, we're good, we want to go back out there, then we're good to talk.
Guys, and as Adam kind of said, we're in our own little space here. So again, we are, from this point forward, we're going to talk about the NFL like we're talking about the NFL, right? So we are here to handicap these games as best as humanly possible. We're going to talk about them from a betting perspective. So here we go with starting that. Decision was made to cancel the Bills and Bengals game. What that has done, it has made a different scenario here play out in week 18 because, guys, we were going to possibly be playing for the number one seed. That is actually not going to be the case. As we know, the Chiefs are going to come away with the number one seed because we're going to win percentage. Now, in announcing the decision to cancel the game, the NFL said 3 key factors. The outcome would have no bearing on which teams actually qualified for the postseason. Playing the game would have altered the playoff schedule for the remaining teams, and not playing the games would allow the clubs to know what the postseason possibilities were heading into week 18. So basically, we know now the Chiefs are going to be the number one seed. We know now that Cincinnati Bengals are your AFC North champions as we head into this week. So that is kind of the preface as to how we will be looking at these games as we move forward, what motivational factors play into these games, and which teams absolutely lack all motivation from other aspects. And of course, there's one key game we're going to talk about where both teams have incentive, but it's the other way. It's to lose. I don't know what's going to happen here. We're going to get a 0-0 tie in this thing, but it'll be incredibly interesting as we move forward. So we'll go ahead and kick things off here. It is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chiefs are 9.5 point favorites on the road at the Raiders in Las Vegas, a total of 52 and a half. Adam, we know here the Chiefs are your number one seed so long as they go ahead and take care of business here as 9.5 point favorites, as everyone thinks that they are going to do. So there is motivation for them. Do they have, but they only have to win. This is the one thing that we're going to have to kind of keep in our minds as we're handicapping this game. Yes, there's motivation for the Chiefs to win. They don't have to win by 10 points, right? I mean, like they if they're up 17 in the fourth quarter, certainly we will see Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and anybody on the sidelines taking absolutely no risk of any sort of injuries and stuff. So that is something we are really going to have to tiptoe here as we move into this week. So I assume you think the Chiefs are going to win over a Jared Stidham-led Las Vegas Raiders team, but do they win by double digits?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And if we saw anything last week with the Raiders against the San Francisco 49ers, it's that there was some life in the offense. And I'm not sure we expected that kind of life in the offense against a defense as good as San Francisco. And that would give me all the pause I would need to not lay those points with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I think the best thing we can talk about this week, like you said, is motivation. The Chiefs have to win this game. So I think ultimately, with as bad as the Raiders defense is, the Chiefs are going to win this game. But the one consistent thing we've seen with Kansas City is that covering spreads over the last 2 years of more than a touchdown is not a thing that they have done well.
If we look at this, Stephen, I almost do wonder if 52, even with being, in a year where we've had depressed totals, I wonder if 52 is enough, right? Because it's kind of one of those things where if we think the Chiefs come out hair on fire, hey, we got to win this game, 1 seed, et cetera, and they're just lighting the field up, could the Chiefs play into the 30s? I think that's within the realm of possibility here. And then, as Adam just mentioned, Stidham and the Raiders looked competent last week. It's not like he doesn't have weapons. He's got Waller, he's got Adams, he's got Jacobs. So I don't know, like as high as 52 is for a 2022-2023 season total, I probably might be looking towards the over in this thing.
Sounds good to me, but you're talking to the guy who's lost a little bit of money this season betting totals. So I'm going to leave that to you, and I'm going to talk about sides since I'm hitting like 65% on sides this year. So I agree with Adam that this number is inflated, and I think that's a constant theme we see each year in the final week of the regular season with the NFL, especially as we get closer to kickoff. The teams that have something to play for often are priced more expensively than they would in a normal week. And you have to decide whether the team that has nothing to play for is going to come out and give a full honest effort. If you think that's the case, then you're probably getting value taking the dog. I think that's the case with the Las Vegas Raiders here. I'm going to bet Raiders plus 9.5. This line was KC -7 at home earlier this year against the Raiders. It's now 9.5 on the road. Now, I know Derek Carr isn't playing, but to Adam's point, I was impressed as well with Stidham against a defense that most of us, I think, would characterize as close to, if not the best in the NFL. He was top 5 in adjusted EPA, 3rd in success rate, 6th in completion percentage over expected, despite having the number 27 expected completion percentage because he was throwing the ball downfield so often. He was number 4 in air yards last week. So I was impressed by Stidham last week. And on top of that, the concern would be that the Chiefs' defenses look good over the past month. They're top 10 in a lot of categories over the past 4 weeks. But they played Denver twice, Houston, and Seattle. So I don't know how much to weigh into that. I think 9.5 is a lot of points. I think the Chiefs are going to score in this game, but I think the Raiders are going to be able to keep pace here and keep this within one possession.
So we'll move on to the second game here on Saturday. And listen, we can here's our chance. Okay, if we're going to say, hey, man, awesome job on all of the medical personnel and everything that they did in the Bills-Cincinnati game, then here's our chance to crap on the NFL, because what are you doing putting this game on Saturday, like the game that we knew for sure was going to mean something? Put this game on Sunday, but instead, here we go. The Titans and the Jags are on Saturday evening, and with that, we have the Jags 6.5-point favorites over the Titans, a total of 39.5 or 40. Guys, we know this one. Win and you're in, right? Either one of these teams win, they are in the playoffs because they will have won the division. Now, there is a very wacky scenario in which the Jags can lose and still get in, but it is so incredibly highly unlikely. We're not going to even go into all that. Let's just keep it to they have to win to get into the playoffs. Steven, if you look at this on paper, the Jags have been one of the more impressive teams over the last 6 weeks in the NFL. The Titans, certainly one of the more disappointing teams overall in the last 6 weeks. They are going to go with Josh Dobbs at quarterback. That being said, this team is a very different looking team this week than they were last week. All of those guys that didn't play last week were all back at practice this week, all practicing in full, most of them not even listed on the injury report this week as well. So if you're trying to handicap, I guess that's my very long-winded way of saying, if you're trying to handicap this game off of what you saw last week, I think you're kind of doing it wrong, because they are going to get back a ton of key pieces on the defensive side of the ball. And look, we were joking, sign a guy 8 days off a practice squad, come in and start, but it's another week that he's been with the offense here with Josh Dobbs, and it certainly looked like they were more willing to open up the offense and throw the ball around a little bit with him under center.
Certainly looked better than Malik Willis, I'll say that, but that was not exactly a high bar to clear. For me, though, if you're backing the Titans this week, it's the Mike Vrabel as a dog, gets his guys up to play, well-coached angle. I can't get there. I have Jags division futures, full disclosure, so I have the option here to partially hedge and maybe even middle it with the Titans to cover 6.5. I'm just not interested. Josh Dobbs last week in that game, 23rd and 24th among all quarterbacks last week in EPA and success rate, so he's better than Malik Willis, but still bad. Expected completion percentage was 62%, and he only completed 52% of his passes. I agree with you. The injury report is cleaner for Tennessee, but it's still not completely clean, Matt. In fact, their top wide receiver, Treylon Burks, was a midweek addition to the injury report, went from limited to DNP Wednesday to Thursday. He's officially questionable. Their right tackle was limited all week with an ankle. He's questionable. Their safety, Amani Hooker, was also a midweek downgrade from limited to DNP Wednesday to Thursday. He's questionable. Christian Fulton, one of their top cornerbacks, limited all week. He's questionable. So these guys are practicing, but are they 100%? And I guess the one positive would be their top defender, maybe the best player on their team, Jeffrey Simmons. He's listed as questionable, but he looks like he's going to play, but he was still limited all week. So
same with Danico Autry. Derrick Henry, of course, back, all the things like that. So all the beat writers are saying they're all likely to go. Yeah, they're
going to play, but how healthy, how effective are they going to be, considering this defense over the past month was the worst in the league in drop back success rate, and Trevor Lawrence tore up this secondary the first time around. So long-winded way of saying I'm not betting on the game. I have Jags futures. I'm going to let them ride, and I'm not going to hedge it with Tennessee plus 6.5.
Adam, one of the very few games where we have a very cut and dry kind of scenario. Both of these teams going to go all out. Anyone that can play is going to play, because this is the only chance you get that you control to get into the playoffs. So cut and dry game here for us. One of the easier ones, at least for me, of the week to try and handicap. That being said, I think the number's pretty appropriate. I think the total is pretty appropriate in all of this. Like, if anything, maybe a slight lean towards the over if we believe that there's any sort of upgrade at the quarterback position with Josh Dobbs. Like, that would kind of maybe be the look for me. There is still a 39.5 floating out there in this one. Do you have any sort of angle on the side or total?
Well, I think to what you're saying right now, Matt, it's a very clear, if you believe it's the favorite, it's the over. If you believe it's the under, it's the dog, because I think Tennessee's going to have to slop up this game in order to win it. There's no way in which I believe that they can continue to score with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Let me go back and give you some stats from a month ago. Coming into the game, these teams played in Tennessee. The Titans were 7-5. The Jaguars were 4-8. And if you got these numbers out of Tennessee, Derrick Henry, 17 carries, 121 yards and a touchdown. Ryan Tannehill, 25-38, 254, 2 touchdowns and a pick. You probably feel okay if you're Tennessee, right? Like that looks a lot like what the Tennessee offense would need to produce to win a game. And they lost the game 36-22, and it really was 36-14, and they gave up 29 unanswered points in that game. So I feel you on the idea of the spread being appropriate, that you don't want to undervalue what Tennessee is capable of doing in this spot. However, I can't get there on the narrative of Vrabel and getting up for a game when there's a talent deficit the way that there is. And the Jacksonville Jaguars are going a completely different direction right now than Tennessee. So I think I would only decide to tease the Jags down to a pick, or I should say to a half point in most spots if you were going to play this, but that's about it.
We're always looking for alternate ways to bet games, guys. So I'm just looking here, and would we agree that the only way in the world that the Titans keep this thing close is if Derrick Henry actually has a day, right? Like, I don't think we think that if Derrick Henry is completely bottled up, that Josh Dobbs is going to lead this team to some miracle, whatever. Like, if we believe that narrative, like, Derrick Henry 100 yards or more is plus 130. You're actually getting plus 130 as opposed to laying minus 110 and whatever. Like, I can't imagine a scenario in which Derrick Henry is completely bottled up in this game, and yet the Titans still keep this thing close, because it seems like the only path to really keeping this close would be Derrick Henry having a day here. So again, just kind of alternate ways you can look at maybe betting this game, because you can tell a story, and if that story plays out, maybe get you a plus 130 there on Derrick Henry to have a big game. But man, I'll be curious watching this one though, because I do want to know if the Jags are real, because this is it, right? Like, This is the test, is it not? I mean, it's like you win, you're in. You've been one of the hottest teams in the NFL. Don't go lay an egg,
Matthew.
Like, yeah.
They are real, and they are spectacular.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes, I know. I really do like this team. I really do. Tampa Bay Bucks and the Atlanta Falcons. Right now, the Falcons are 4 to 4.5 point favorites over the Bucks. 40.5 is your total. So as we sit here, Adam, we know that the Bucs have said they are going to at least play their starters. What we do not know is how long they're going to play their starters. I think it is probably my guess is this is probably the coaching staff thinking, hey, we actually found a little bit last week. We actually got a little bit of stuff going. Let's at least get a few series and try to build upon Tom Brady hitting Mike Evans for 3 massive touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. That's my guess. Now, does that mean a few series? Does that mean a quarter? Does that mean the first half? Does that mean the majority of the game? All of this plays into whether this is massively mispriced or priced appropriately. How do you kind of view what you think might go on here?
My overall thought is, are Tampa's backups 4.5 points worse than what the Atlanta Falcons are throwing out there right now? Because it's not as though this Desmond Ridder-led offense has been running up and down the field on anybody. So even if you have Tampa's defensive backups in there, is Atlanta going to be able to score? So I think that the two ways that I would look at this is the slightly riskier way would be to take the points with Tampa Bay. But I have no idea how Tampa's number 2 offense and what we've seen out of the Atlanta offense get to the number. Right? That to me is the straighter path into this game. Is if you look at the total, and 40.5 honestly feels kind of high in a year when we've seen 35s on the board. Are we giving that much respect to what we saw out of Tampa's offense last week? Because for the 16 before it didn't look very good.
Stephen, we take a look here at, nothing to play for the Bucs. They are locked in, locked up, nothing to move, nothing, whatever. We know where they're going to be. Falcons, I mean, if you want to say any sort of motivation, I guess the only thing would be from a Falcons perspective, you do have a rookie quarterback. You still want to get the guy quality reps. You still want to see what you have in Desmond Ridder, et cetera, et cetera. So there is that playing into all of this. 4.5. What are you seeing as to how this game might play out?
I agree that this line is closer to being completely mispriced than appropriate. And for starters, the opponent they're playing, like Adam said, the Falcons don't beat anybody by margin. Like, they played David Blau last week and needed a last-second field goal just to win the game when they were 6-point favorites in that game. So this has been a storyline for us with Atlanta all season long. You do not want to bet them when they are favored by more than a field goal. Often don't want to bet them when they're favored at all. So with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, I do think there is something to them wanting to play for at least some portion of this game, their starters, to make sure that they're trying to, run a little bit closer to a clean offense. They admittedly, from the interviews I've seen, don't feel great about where they are. They still want to continue to have momentum going into the playoffs. And it took them getting down 14 points again last week against the Panthers to finally open it up and say, the hell with the run game that hasn't worked all year long. And with that negative game script, they wound up throwing it 45 times and only rushing it 25 times, scored 30 points and had more than 6 yards per play. So, I mean, note to self, when they play Dallas next week, if they get down early, they're actually going to be the better version of their offense because they're not going to be able to run the ball. So I might be in a live betting opportunity there. But for this week, this was the lines.com Discord channel bet of the week. I mean, we got this at +7.5 earlier this week with Tampa Bay. So we're sitting on a great number. But even for those that aren't in the market yet, this feels to me like Jacksonville, Houston from last week, where the market thought all the starters weren't going to play, but all the reports out from the team were that they are going to play. So at the very least, if you are concerned the Bucs aren't going to play in the second half, you're getting plus money on the superior team here in the first half. I mean, I think you can get like +140 on the Bucs in the first half. So, I'm fine with playing the Bucs any which way at these numbers, to be honest with you. And if you're concerned starters are going to get pulled, just play them in the first half at really good numbers.
Yeah, I am more apt to take the points with the Bucs. I'm certainly more apt to play them in the first half than I would be ever laying anything with this Falcons team. The defense is absolutely atrocious. They've shown nothing on offense, really. I think Ridder may end up actually being fine when it's all said and done. But, again, I don't I don't have any reason to believe that that's going to just magically manifest here in week 18 all of a sudden against the Bucs. So again, yeah, I would be much more apt to take the points in this one than I would be laying anything at all. All right, we're moving on here to the New England Patriots and the Buffalo Bills. Bills are 7-point favorites in this one at home against the Patriots. 42.5 is the total. Again, Bills could be in a situation where they already know that the Chiefs have locked up the number 1 seed. That being said, you could not keep these guys off the field for anything in this game, at least not for a while, right? I mean, like, this is not going to be a scenario in which we're worried about whether the starters are going to play or not play or anything like that. I mean, you couldn't keep these guys off the field if you tried. Word coming through as we're sitting here recording this that the breathing tube was removed from Damar Hamlin last night. He's actually was FaceTiming with players and things like that today. So
awesome.
Has all that going on. And so we are going to get a jacked up version of this Bills team. There's no doubt about that. So guys, where that put me on this is I wasn't willing to lay the full 7. I did tease this down to a point. I have them paired up with a team later on in the pod that we will talk about that is also sitting in that very teasable range still as we sit right now. So that was kind of my angle here. I'm really asking the Bills starters who are likely going to play, like I said, definitely 3 quarters in this thing, maybe a little bit more to get me a win by a point. Steven, what do you see here in this one?
Well, the Bills need the game because if they don't win, then they do have to go to Kansas City to play in the potential AFC Championship game if we're assuming the Chiefs win. If the Bills win this game, then it ensures that a potential AFC Championship game is at least on a neutral field against the Chiefs.
Which we will find out at some point later today as we're recording this, which is why we can run through all that. The owners are voting on that at some point as to what scenario. Yes. So we don't have the full details on that quite yet.
If approved, that's the scenario, though. So, and there is no backup scenario at the moment. So that's what I'm operating on. I can't imagine the owners would not approve this. The majority of owners would not approve this. So I'm operating under the assumption as we record right now that the Bills need to win to ensure a neutral field AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. This line was 10 on the look ahead. It's now 7. I think that if you look at the recent matchups between these two rosters, and there's a lot of carryover from the past 2 years, the only time the Patriots have even been competitive against the Buffalo Bills was that crazy wind game where the Bills literally couldn't throw the ball and the Patriots mucked it up and only threw it 3 times themselves. So I think a teaser leg is a great spot here, Matt, if you look at the matchup between these two teams. I have no interest in trying to figure out motivation or emotions and all that. Like I'm just going to bet the game. I'm just happy Damar Hamlin's okay. And I think that this is a mismatch any way you slice it with Buffalo against New England. And I think the teaser leg's a great look here by you.
Yeah, Adam, when we take a look here, I mean, this is an important game for the Patriots, who, again, are clinging to their playoff hopes as well. So I don't want to just make it look like this is only one-way motivation. Right. Certainly the Patriots are playing to try to get into the playoffs as well in this thing. But I don't think, listen, I think we've been very honest about this Patriots team on the podcast over 18 weeks of recording this thing. I think that we look and we say it's a very fair thing to say that this is just a average to mediocre NFL team, right? They don't do anything exceptionally well on the offensive side of the ball. As we found out, when they play high-powered offenses, the defensive numbers that they compiled over the course of the season don't really bear out because the high-powered offenses have been able to score against this defense. And I think it's just kind of a middling team against a team that we all have in the top 3 of our power ratings.
The word that comes to mind, Adam, is
So when I look at the New England Patriots, I see a team, to the point that Matt just made, where the defense can't get left on the field all day. And that's the problem when you face these high-powered offenses, is that you have teams that are able to expose that. Now, when you talk about the Buffalo Bills this week, just to get the betting piece in there, the teaser leg makes all the sense in the world because there is still motivation for the Bills. I'll only add this much to it. They also need the game for practical reasons because they didn't play last week, right? Like they played a quarter. And so if you don't put the starters out there for a significant length of time, then you're essentially talking about 2 to 3 full weeks with these guys not having gotten a real run out there. So like you said, Matt, a half at minimum, 3/4 almost for sure. And it wouldn't shock me if it were a full game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really do. I like a teaser leg angle there. I mean, just asking these guys to win, I think is a pretty solid bet in that one. And again, there are now, as these lines start to take shape here, some dance partners if you did want to play that teaser leg. Minnesota Vikings and the Chicago Bears. This is sitting Vikings as now 7.5 point favorites at the Chicago Bears. 43.5 is your total. Of course, this moved on the news that Justin Fields is not going to play for the Chicago Bears this week. That is the smart decision by this organization. I know people are saying, but the record, the future of your franchise is much more important than a singular rushing record for the quarterback. And oh, by the way, he could get it next year or the year after that, whatever. It's like, I mean, this is your franchise future in a meaningless game. Don't trot a guy out there that's not needed. Now, Adam, of course, this is a game the Vikings are, again, in theory, need to go out and play hard and win because there are backdoor scenarios to all different kinds of seeding things in the NFC. So there is that at play here for the Vikings, who find themselves as more than a touchdown favorite now against the Bears.
I'm going to lay off this. There's way too much at question here for both of these teams. And look, I know we've seen Minnesota play much better than they did last week. But that's now twice that we've watched Minnesota go out there and be absolutely destroyed by a superior opponent. And so, I understand that is not the Chicago Bears in any way, shape, or form, but there's too much at play here. I mean, I'm sure some people will probably want to tease this down into the range below a field goal and say, how could Minnesota lose to Chicago? I don't know, but at the same time, I don't want to put my money in the way of it.
So we're going to get Nathan Peterman here, Stephen, and look, he's got experience. He's got experience at least. We're not trotting out whatever, a rookie that has never taken a snap before. So there's at least that. Where I'm going with this is this: the total's sitting at 43, right?
Okay.
The Bears defense is at least, it's in the same breath with the Falcons as the worst defense in the NFL. No question, right? But the Vikings defense is not that great, right? And certainly in a garbage time scenario, if that were to play out, we know they already play these like soft zone looks. They're going to get the softest zone look. These Bears are going to get the softest zone looks you've ever seen in the whole world. I kind of think 43 is too low in this game, even with Peterman at quarterback, because the Vikings are going to score a lot of points against the Bears. I would imagine into the mid-20s, if not into the low 30s, because, again, this offense has been good against bad defenses, and then they just don't show up against the good defense, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, they're going to put up points. Can the Bears not muster us 14, 17-ish points in this game? Because if that's the case, I think the over is the look here, because that Vikings defense is probably going to give up some garbage time yards and probably some garbage time scores.
So let's think about the scenario here with the seeding for a second, because the Vikings play early, the Niners play late. The Vikings theoretically could still be playing for the 2 seed, but do they want the 2 seed?
Right.
Because the 2 seed going to have to play the Packers or the Seahawks or the Lions, and the 3 seed's going to get to play the Giants, who we all admit have been a great story and overachieved, but don't have the talent of the Lions or the Packers. So I'm not convinced the Vikings actually want to win this game. And I suppose they're going to trot their starters out there, but I wouldn't be surprised if the starters don't play the entire game. But with that being said, exactly what Adam noted. Way too much uncertainty here for me in this one. Nathan Peterman, and you want to bet the over, by all means, you go right ahead. I'm good. I can't disagree with your handicap other than Nathan Peterman.
That said, though, I mean, I know you want to like talk about opponents. Stuff like I mean, 2 seed gets you 2 home games. Like you want the 2 seed for sure.
And you're going to take this as Giants homerism, I'm sure. But just a couple of weeks ago, the New York Giants put up 6.7 yards per play against Minnesota and lost on a last-second field goal. I don't know that that's necessarily an indictment of the Giants to the point where Minnesota would make a decision based on which opponent they get.
Yeah, I think for sure
that's fair, but I also think they don't have much to play for this week other than 2 or 3 seed. They're going to have to play next week no matter what. So I think the bigger risk here is letting some of your key starters possibly get hurt in a Week 18 game. I'll say that point at least.
Yeah, there is that, and then there's also the do they after he had 1 catch, do they want to go out and get Justin Jefferson, the 193 yards he needs to break the all-time receiving record. So again, there's all kinds of
10-1 on that, by the way. I know you're big on some of these contract and milestone stuff, Matt. You can get 10-1 that he breaks the record.
Yeah, I mean, getting 200 yards in a game's hard even against the worst defense in the NFL, but I think they're going to try at least in the first half. I don't know. I doubt he gets there in the first half. They're going to try at least in the first half anyway. Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. This changed a lot over the last 24 hours because we now know for sure what's at stake. So Bengals are now 8.5 to 9. This thing has already gotten to 9-point favorites over the Ravens. 39.5 is your total. A couple of different things. Lamar Jackson's not going to go for the Ravens yet again, so that certainly swung things towards Cincinnati. Cincinnati, again, does have something to play for due to all of these tiebreak rules that we have been talking about and whatnot. So the various scenarios and how the championship games and things like that could all play out in the seedings and stuff has the Cincinnati in a motivational angle here for sure to go ahead and play and win, et cetera, even though they have already taken down the North. So it's moved out of teaser range in a few of the books out there. So if you did want to get Cincinnati under a field goal, it's gone. It's still available at some of the books, at least as of the recording of this. I don't know by the time that you guys are watching this out there if it'll still be available. Steven, this was the other leg of the teaser for me with the Bills, but it was when the game was at 7. So I have Cincinnati down to 1. That was before I knew how they were going to play out all this other stuff. I just thought Cincinnati had every reason in the world to go out there and win the game. We know they still do. Now it's gotten up to 9, 8.5, 9. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this moved Thursday night into Friday morning out of that 7 to 9 range. There are a couple of 8 and 8.5 still available if you're interested in the Bengals teaser leg, and I certainly would be. I would be, if you're hearing this, and those 8 and 8.5 are still there, I would be all over the Bengals on a teaser leg here because I think this is more likely at this point that the third string quarterback Anthony Brown plays than Tyler Huntley. The Ravens don't even know if Lamar Jackson's going to be available for the playoff game, and their backup quarterback Tyler Huntley's banged up. They already have not won the division, the Ravens. They're eliminated from that. And the Bengals need to win this game to avoid a potential coin flip for home field in the wild card rematch if these two teams play each other again. So Bengals have a ton of motivation here. Again, to Adam's point, after barely playing a game last week as well. So, yeah, I'd be running to the window to get a Bengals teaser leg in here before it gets to 9 across the board, because I think that's pretty likely.
Before it gets to 9 across the board, Adam, as Steven was talking, it's gone to 9.5 at 3 of the books out here. So this thing is like apparently rocket shipping to 10. Let's handicap it, because let's just assume by the time people are watching this that let's just say it is at 10. What would be your thought then if it was sitting like that?
Think about the game we watched last week with the Baltimore Ravens against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mm-hmm. That was not pretty. Nope. And that was a game that the Baltimore Ravens really needed, and they couldn't get it done against the Kenny Pickett-led Steelers. What is to make you believe that Cincinnati doesn't run out on them in the first half alone in a game where Baltimore has no reason to play this game? So I'm not going to go and advocate laying that amount of points in any NFL game in 2022.
Right.
But if you're asking me what's the number where you would take the Ravens, you're probably talking out past 14.
Yeah, you're right. Like that's basically where I'm at. Like, so even okay, let's live in a world in which I don't have a teaser leg from the 7 down to 1. As I look right now, I'm still only laying it with Cincinnati before I'm taking the points with the Ravens. The offense has been broken since Lamar has been out. It has been absolutely atrocious. And again, this Cincinnati offense, obviously short, small sample size, what we saw against the Bills this past week and all that, but we have seen it over the several weeks with that as well. They're a truck, man. They just go out and score and move on whatever. And as good as you maybe think that the Ravens defense was trending, I don't know if it matters, right? Like, I don't think it really matters all that much. And so again, guys, we're doing our best to kind of speculate where this might be by the time you watch this. And as I say that, 2 10s pop on the board. So there are, this thing is definitely heading that direction, heading to 10, which also leads me to believe that Steven, even though we have not gotten the official announcement yet, that maybe what you're saying is also the truth, that we're probably going to get a 3rd string quarterback in this game as well. So
yeah, I would like to now rush through the rest of the game so I can get over the bridge, because there's still an 8 at one spot.
Like, that's what we've got going on in this game. Hey guys, we're trying to give you the best we can whenever we're recording these things. So again, information is going to come out after we get done. Houston Texans and the Indianapolis Colts. And this was the game I was talking about at the top, where when we say motivational factors, this has anti-motivational factor in this game. So guys, we are looking at the Houston Texans, that if they go ahead and trip over their own you-know-what in this game and win, and the Chicago Bears lose like we think that they will lose the number 1 draft spot. People are going to say, the Bears aren't going to take a quarterback anyway. It doesn't matter. No, but someone is, and they're going to trade with the Bears to get that top spot. And then you don't have the choice of one of the 3 guys that you want. You, as the number 1 pick, can evaluate CJ Stroud and Bryce Young and Will Levis, and you then can make the choice as to which guy is going to lead your franchise for the next decade, and not have someone else dictate who you have to pick, because you have already you've already had one of those guys come off the board. So again, this would be a franchise altering win in the worst way for the Houston Texans. And oh, by the way, the Colts want a quarterback as well. They currently sit in the 5 spot. A win would drop them behind the Rams. Again, most likely, we assume the Rams are going to lose, but who knows? Maybe the Rams would win. That spot, of course, isn't actually the Rams. It goes to Detroit, but it's neither here nor there. It does still drop them in this as well. And we could be looking at a spot in which Detroit might be looking at the future for a quarterback as well, because Jared Goff, of course, is not going to be there forever. So it's a very, very interesting game here. Adam, when we look at it, it's sitting 2.5. I mean, I don't know if we have a real feel or handicap as to how this is going to go. We can't handicap tanking, but if you're Houston, you can't win this game, right? Like, you can't do it.
You also can't force Indianapolis to put 11 motivated defenders on the field. Like, there's just no way of getting your mind around.
Wild. This game is so wild. It really is.
No, I'm going to love every bit of it. I mean, every bit of it is going to look like the Patriots letting Ahmad Bradshaw score in the Super Bowl, like way back when. Like, you go. That's about as much salient analysis as I can give of this game. I'll pass on it because we've never had to sit here and handicap 2 teams trying to lose, and I'm not about to start now.
So, yeah, that's true. I mean, Steven, it really is the craziest of crazy situations, because it is 2 teams that desperately need to lose. And so I just don't know. I mean, Jeff Saturday seems like the guy, though. He knows he's a rent-a-coach. He's whatever. He seems like the dude who, let's go in the season on a high note and like go out there and just like crush. Honest to God, if I was playing this, the only way I could do, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, because I'm not going to do it, guys. I'm just saying the only way I would play this, I would lay the 2.5 with the Colts. That would be the only way I would play this game.
Can you tell me why Texans plus 8.5 teaser leg is a bad idea? Because that was my instinct at first.
Yes, because like Adam said, if the Texans are smart, they're going to go and get the hot dog vendors and put them on the field. Yeah, I mean, like, seriously, they need to be signing guys off of like the damn G League. And yes, I understand that's basketball. I said that on purpose to be funny, like to come and play. Like they cannot win this game. Like, you can't do it. Like, you get several months to evaluate 3 quarterbacks that everybody thinks is going to be like potentially franchise altering NFL starting quarterbacks, and you desperately, desperately need that, you can't win this game. You just can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, Davis Mills, if he's starting, he can't finish the game, right? Like, they can't let him finish the game because he's actually been playing well. He's actually been competitive. So for all the reasons you guys have described, it's a total pass for me, and just watch what kind of crazy, funny antics happen in this. If anything,
I'm going to play the Colts in the contest. Listen, I'm going to play the Colts in the contest. Yeah, I am. I'm playing the Colts in the contest.
Sam Ehlinger one more time, baby. Yeah. Sam Ehlinger.
I'm doing it. I'm playing the Colts in the contest.
You want to do something fun with this game? See if like one of your books has one of those like $5 risk-free same game parlays, and just take like every big name player in this game and parlay the unders.
Yes, just do that. A 10 leg under same game parlay. That's the way to go about this one. New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins. This thing has moved to 3 in favor of the Dolphins because as we were recording this, Mike White was ruled out for the New York Jets. It is going to be Joe Flacco going for the New York Jets. Now, that being said, we don't know who's going to be playing quarterback for the Dolphins. Teddy Bridgewater was able to get back in a limited fashion, even with the dislocated pinky on his throwing hand yesterday. So there is that. Skylar Thompson, of course, looms, and they did go sign Mike Glennon as well for the Miami Dolphins. Yeah. So, dude, I would love a Week 18 Glennon versus Flacco. Like that would just be like that'd just be the greatest like game. Like
with a playoff spot on the line.
With a playoff spot on the line, like just give that to me. But Steven, again, 3 points in favor of the Dolphins. Look like there's a slight potential. It could be Bridgewater, probably Skylar Thompson.
Feels to me like another team that has something to play for getting steamed and maybe overpriced against a team that quote unquote has nothing to play for, because it's not just the quarterbacks for the Dolphins. Their left tackle Teron Armstead, back-to-back DMPs after he didn't play last week. Bradley Chubb and Xavier Howard back to a limited practice on Thursday. Still don't know if they're going to play. On the flip side, though, 3 offensive linemen with back-to-back DMPs for the Jets. So add that to the quarterback situation as well. But I think I'm tempted to play Jets teaser here. There's no reason for me to bet it as we record right now because of all the steam that's coming in on the Dolphins. If this gets the +3, I might take the Jets just straight up. But if we're going to sit in the 2.5 range, then I think Jets teaser leg here is fine because the Dolphins have been a below average, maybe a bottom 10 team with these other quarterbacks when they're on the field.
Well, let me give you real-time stuff here. Robert Saleh is on the mic as we are recording this. Dwayne Brown, George Fant, and Nate Herbig are all out for the game. So 3 starting offensive linemen for the Jets are all out to go with Joe Flacco there for the Jets. So there's that plays into this as well, which again, now I understand why everything is moving towards the Dolphins. And I think that is,
but still, like, are you going to lay? By the way, it's now 3 across the board. I just checked again. It's 3 across the board. Are you going to lay 3 with a hurt Teddy or Skylar Thompson? That's hard. I don't think I'm going to do that either.
Well, Adam, I got to tell you this. He's sitting at the podium, and Robert Saleh says that Flacco is like a Ford pickup truck. You might not appreciate him in September or October, but you really appreciate him when the weather turns nasty. So if that should help you with your handicap here, I assume.
Yes, the F either stands for Ford, Flacco, or what I think about this game. Guys.
Fart noise? Is that what the other F is?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
Yeah, we'll go that one.
37's too high. And look at what you're going to have, right? You're going to have a injured second string and or third string quarterback. You have the New York Jets skipping over Zach Wilson to go to Joe Flacco in a spot where we just talked about being able to evaluate quarterbacks. You have the perfect spot to evaluate your second-year quarterback, and you're like, now we're good.
Yeah, we'll just punt on this till next year. Yeah.
No, if you ever wanted a sign of Zach Wilson's future in New York, it's this game right here. Now, the one thing I want to point out with the Miami Dolphins is we've talked so much about the handling of Damar Hamlin and how wonderful the Bills' medical staff was in saving his life. The Miami Dolphins are going to miss the playoffs because they either willfully or ignorantly screwed up the concussion protocol on Tua Tagovailoa so badly that they left him out there in the second half when he likely was concussed, when they were, as you mentioned last week, Matt, trucking the Green Bay Packers. They were up 10 points on Green Bay, and they let Tua, at the very best in a compromised state, stay out in that game when Teddy Bridgewater easily could have guided them home with a victory they absolutely needed. And now this team is left in a spot where they need help.
Yeah, it really is. I think the only angle here, maybe if you wanted to play a Garrett Wilson, all the Garrett Wilson over props, that the only thing they have to play for is to get him Rookie of the Year. Right. And I mean, and so if he gets 15 targets in this game, it would not surprise me like in the least bit. Right. Like, I mean, like it just, that's all they have to play for. They have to play to get him Rookie of the Year. Sauce Gardner's already got it locked up on the defensive side. So it's like, they could walk out of this season saying we had both Rookies of the Year. Right. I mean, like there's at least that, and that could be yeah, I know. Right. I mean, if give them something to cheer for. Wilson, currently the second shot in that market at plus 205. If you are, I feel for
the Dolphins win total bettors as well, because I have a friend who has a good chunk of change on the Dolphins over win total here, and that's riding on this game. And he could have had it in any one of the games over the past month. And now he's in a situation where it's the final game and he needs Teddy / Skylar Thompson to beat a beat up New York Jets team to cash that win total over. So
good luck to him then.
Another fun, awful, torturous sweat coming for the Dolphins win total backers.
We got the Panthers and the Saints. And listen, guys, we've been able to find angles on all the games we've talked about here on the pod so far. Both teams dead. Absolutely nothing to play for. Saints don't have a first round pick. They don't have anything. Like this is just, again, there's absolutely nothing here to play for. No motivational angles to talk about. Carolina currently sitting 9th overall in the draft on the draft board. So like losing doesn't really do them all that
great. They don't have their first round pick either. The Saints.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So, but even the Panthers, right, are sitting 9th currently. Doesn't really do them any good to lose. So I don't know, man. Like if this one, Adam, I know I was like, hey, let's find angles in all these games and whatever. Like this game, if you're betting it, you're good for you, I guess. Like I don't have any idea.
Well, think about it this way. The Carolina offense, since the removal of Baker Mayfield, has actually been pretty good. Mm-hmm. And if you look at last week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the offense did its part in that game. So against an unmotivated Saints team that, you look at that score last week against the Eagles and it's inflated by the Marshawn Lattimore pick 6. I don't hate if you want to take Carolina here, because I believe that this offense, because they need to run the ball in order to be good, and any team that's just trying to play out the season is just going to run the ball anyway. I don't hate it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's true. I guess I should have put it that way. It would be Carolina or pass, right? Like for sure, it would be Carolina or pass, considering you're getting more than a hook, right? I mean, you're getting three and a hook there in that thing. Steven, is there anything you see in this one? Again, total sitting 41.5 to 42.
If there is a motivational angle whatsoever in this game, it's the Panthers players trying to get Steve Wilks hired full time, because all of the local beat reporters down there are saying that the players love Steve Wilks and they want him to be the full-time head coach. So that is the potential angle here. I think that combined with some of the advanced metrics are probably why you're seeing this turn into an expensive plus 3.5 for the Panthers as we record on Friday morning. So that's probably my stopping point. I need Panthers plus 3.5 minus 115 if I'm going to bet on this game, but that is a bet for me. And go ahead. I'm glad you brought that up. You're right. That is at least an angle here, because the players apparently do love Wilks. There is that. Right. So that to me, combined with the fact that the Panthers offense has been good, like Adam mentioned, over the past month, 2nd and 7th in EPA and success rate. New Orleans in that span is below average. Now, admittedly, the Saints defense has been pretty good, but they're 27th and 28th in EPA and success rate against the run over the past month. And go ask the Detroit Lions what happens if you don't have your run game defense figured out against this Carolina offense. They will run all over you. So I think the Panthers can at least keep this game within a field goal.
Just an aside here, guys. So we mentioned Garrett Wilson is plus 205 for Rookie of the Year. Chris Olave is 30-1 for Rookie of the Year. He is 1 touchdown and 32 yards behind Garrett Wilson on the season, playing 2 fewer games. Chris Olave missed 2 games. He is 32 yards and 1 touchdown behind Garrett Wilson, yet he's 30-1, and Garrett Wilson's plus 205.
So if he goes off in this game,
I'm just saying that's interesting to me that he is somehow 30-1, playing 2 fewer games and only 30 yards behind and 1 touchdown. So that's something I think, at least I thought I'd throw it out there. At least, whatever. We're looking for angles, all right? We're trying to figure out something. We're trying to figure things out here in this thing.
That's worth some lunch money. I'm in.
All right, let's look at the Browns and the Steelers. 2 points in favor of the Steelers in this one, who, again, still have playoff aspirations. 40.5 is our total in this one as we were recording this as well. Jadeveon Clowney packed up his stuff and went home. He got sent home from the Browns facility and apparently said on the way out, there's a 95% chance I won't be back here next year. So there's that for the dysfunctional Browns team that is actually the defensive side has started to play well over the last 6 weeks of the season. So good for them heading into this. Adam, if we take a look, Steelers, they're fine. They're not good. Pickett certainly is coming around. I think Pickett might actually have a future in this league and all of that. Browns showed signs of life at least a little bit last week in all of this. Do we think the Steelers have it in them to win at margin in any game? I don't have it in the account. If someone told me they wanted to take 8.5 with the Browns in a 40.5 total, I guess I probably wouldn't talk them off of it.
No, I agree with that. I think I also would ask anybody looking at this game, show me how we're getting to 40.5. Because the Pittsburgh Steelers, even in looking good, even in the games they've won, how have they done it the last couple of weeks? They've done it with late touchdowns, one that allowed them to win 13-10 and one that allowed them to win 16-13. And I don't know that I see how either of these teams is putting up 20 and or 20 plus to be able to push this thing up to 40.5. So I think you're right. I think the teaser leg makes sense because of what I'm talking about here, that I don't see either of these teams getting 8.5 points apart from the other.
Steven, 2 in favor of a Steelers team that, again, does at least still have somewhat of a hope of making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's a Steelers line that is inflated because they are still alive for the playoffs and are playing a team that isn't, because under normal circumstances, this is not the correct line to me. I like Browns teaser up to 8.5. I even like moneyline parlay on the Browns with Tampa Bay first half. You can get plus 450 on that. If you want to go so bold as to a 3-leg moneyline parlay with some dogs, you can add the Carolina team and make it plus 1250. So Cleveland moneyline, Carolina moneyline, Tampa Bay first half at plus 1250 or better. So those are a couple of dabbles I'll do on the moneyline side of things. But yeah, this is a Browns team that finally had a normal game last week, no wind or weather, and a few more weeks for Deshaun Watson to kind of get some more reps and get back into the swing. And they posted above average yards per play against a good Washington defense. And the Browns defense continued its late season turnaround, less than 4 yards per play allowed against a below average offense, admittedly, but that seems like a similar spot to me here against Pittsburgh. What's really confusing to me, guys, are the advanced stats on Pittsburgh, because over the past month, they've scored 16 points or fewer in 3 of the past 4 games. But in that span, they're top 5 in EPA and success rate, top 10 across the board, including run or pass. So that doesn't make any sense to me based on what we've seen on the field. It's very strange. I can't explain it, to be honest with you, but I'm going to trust my eyes here and take Cleveland on the teaser leg here at plus 8.5.
Yeah, I mean, it's just very, very, very tough for me to get on the Pittsburgh side here. I'm with you. I think that maybe just because they have something to play for, that's automatically swinging to their side. Where again,
this should be a pick 'em under normal circumstances.
Most likely. All right, let's head to a game here that is at least somewhat interesting, the Chargers and the Broncos, because guess what? We have to play the guessing game. That's why it's so interesting, because the Chargers find themselves as 3-point dogs to the Denver Broncos with a total of 39.5 to 40. And the reason we're sitting here and people are going to go, what do you mean? Why in the world is this going on? That is because the Chargers would sit here and they would be able to rest players if Cincinnati Bengals take care of business as they should against the Baltimore Ravens. Brandon Staley actually came out and said yesterday that that would be something that they would consider. So impossible game to play for me, guys. Impossible scenario to try and handicap. I think we all think Cincinnati is going to beat the Ravens, so therefore it puts the Chargers in a situation to rest their players if they want to. Seems like that's going to be the case. Steven, I'll start with you, but I don't have much in this one.
My analysis of this game is that, honestly, the NFL has done a terrible job in scheduling these games this week and when they play. The Ravens and the Bengals game should be going on at the same time as the Chargers and the Broncos game. And you could move the Bengals game to the 4 o'clock window and then just move the Cowboys game up to the 1 o'clock window. It'd be very easy fix for these things. Same thing with the Sunday night game, where the Lions might not have anything to play for on Sunday Night Football.
We'll get to that game. Talk about this one. Let's go.
There's multiple examples of like terrible scheduling in week 18 that was very easily fixable, and they didn't do it. So, but to your point, the Ravens are probably going to lose in the 1 o'clock window, which makes this game meaningless for the Chargers. But at the same time, like, we've seen this Broncos team all year. Like, I have no interest in putting money on the Denver Broncos as favorites. And it's probably going to be, you know, if you had to guess, Adam, if things play out like we think here and the Ravens lose, this might get steamed for the Broncos up to 3. In that case, we have to have a different discussion than what we're looking at here at 2.5.
It's 3 across the board.
Likely. You got 3s right now?
It's 3 across the board right now.
3.5, 3.5 juiced in some spots.
Yeah.
Then that happened while we've been doing the show, because earlier this morning it was 2.5. Because so now we can have a better conversation here. If this gets to 3.5, guys, are you interested in the Chargers at this point with the dumpster fire that has been Denver all season? With their backups,
no,
the Chargers.
I'm
not either. No.
Yeah. Like you said,
quote by Staley yesterday, Adam. It says, if that's something we feel like would be a good decision, we'll take it case by case. And so here's the case. You had Keenan Allen, who missed the majority of the season with the hamstring. You had Mike Williams, who missed a ton of time with his ankle injury. Justin Herbert battled injury all season long. Also, the case by case is that all the good players are not going to play. So I'm just not interested in that.
And I'll add this. If you pay attention to what the Broncos have said the last couple of weeks, there's actually been this strange little rally around Russell Wilson. I would not be at all surprised with an interim coach and with them trying to prove that this Russell Wilson thing isn't a complete and total disaster. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Broncos offense rally up just a little bit this week. So that's enough that I wouldn't want to get involved with taking the points with the Chargers.
New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles, 2 touchdown favorites are the Eagles. 43 is your total. Guys, this is one where you're going, wait, what in the hell are you talking about? Eagles going to get Hurts back, playing for the number 1 seed. Giants are locked in. Dayball came out and said, basically, he backed off of his, oh no, we're going to play. He backed off at him and said, actually, maybe not with all that. I mean, look, he's a sharp dude. He gets it. If there's no reason to play guys, especially with as injured as this team has been all year long, risking even a few snaps with Saquon Barkley or Daniel Jones or anything like that makes no sense whatsoever. I think this line is appropriate. I think we're going to see all Giants backups for 95% of this game. I don't have much more than that.
It was only a couple of weeks ago that the New York Giants, with their starters on the field, got absolutely wrecked by Philadelphia. What would be the motivation for Brian Daboll to send his starters out there again? To prove that they aren't going to get wrecked a second time? Look, this is not Tom Coughlin and the Giants going against the 15-0 Patriots and trying to say, no, we're going to do what's right by the game. Philadelphia's going to win this game regardless. Now, 2 touchdowns? that's obviously, that is a wide berth for a Philadelphia team that at least for, I'd say, the first 2/3 roughly of the season wasn't blowing anybody out. But the one team they blew out was the New York Giants. So that being the case, you're certainly not going to reach a point where you say to me, okay, that's enough points to take the Giants.
Yeah, Steven, it's just I'm not going to say it's completely unbettable. I think you're probably taking the 14 if you're playing the game just because, hey, it's 2 touchdowns in the NFL and whatever and all that. But again, what we haven't seen, though, like people are going to say, I heard someone with this handicap yesterday, but teams hadn't been covering these big spreads in the NFL and all that. We have not. Yes, you're right. But that's 2 A teams playing against each other. We are literally going to get a team playing for the number 1 overall seed with their starters against a team that is likely to run out all back. It's not the same scenario. It's not apples to apples. So like we can't sit here and say, look at the stats all season long, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not the case in this game.
It would only be Eagles for me in this game, but I also could see a situation where they're up comfortably, but maybe not by 14 late, and they just pull guys because they already have the 1 seed locked up. So it's no bet for me. I think the most interesting conversation around this game is the coach of the year market, where Brian Daboll has been getting a lot of publicity from some influencers in the NFL space, notably Sharp and Mina Kimes, and he's now up to plus 275. And I ask selfishly because I have juicy numbers on Nick Sirianni and Kyle Shanahan that I would very much not like to go to 0. So do you guys think Brian Daboll is live at this point?
I do not. I think this is people trying to pump up maybe their own personal, from a Sharp standpoint. I don't know. I mean, Mina Kimes, I don't know if she bets or not, or I have no idea. But do I think he probably should get it? Yes. Do I think they will vote him to get it? No. If that answers your question. Do you have the same kind of sentiment, Adam? Like, I think what he's done's magician work, but I don't think they're actually going to vote him Coach of the Year.
Brian Daboll's not going to win Coach of the Year. And I'm saying that as a Giants fan who could not be happier to have Brian Daboll as the head coach of my team. But the Nick Sirianni thing, everyone's going to look and say, well, he didn't have Jalen Hurts for the 2 weeks that Philadelphia struggled. So as long as they go ahead and lock up the number 1 seed, I think this is Nick Sirianni's to lose.
Arizona Cardinals.
Sorry, Matt. I just did the mess up at the beginning of the intro, but I just want to say thank you. That makes me feel much better. And sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers. This is another 2-touchdown game. Arizona Cardinals not going to have anybody out there. Cliff Kingsbury likely on his way out. It is the J.J. Watt retirement game. If you want to play that angle, I guess, again, 14 in favor of the 49ers, 39.5 is the total. Steven, we know 49ers, there is still something to play for them because we talked about all these wacky scenarios in which all the seedings and things can all be juggled and whatnot. So there is that for them. Cardinals going to basically put nobody out on the field, lame duck coach most likely, and, whatever. J.J. Watt at least riding off into the sunset maybe is an angle for the Cardinals, I guess.
The only angle I would consider here, I'm not betting the game. 49ers win, Eagles lost, they get the 1 seed. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts plays, it's highly unlikely to happen. At least in the first half, though, there's uncertainty about what's going to happen in Philadelphia. So maybe we get the best effort from the 49ers in the first half. Yeah. So I would take a peek at some first half odds here on the Niners. But beyond that, I'm not interested.
Adam, another 2-touchdown game here. 49ers 14-point favorites over the Cardinals.
I probably would wait to see when the player props get posted what the J.J. Watt over a half sack number looks like, because, did you see how excited everyone was last week when J.J. Watt got a sack? Like, they're going to try to send him out that way.
They might even give him a ceremonial one, right? Or something like that or whatever. Like the 49ers, it's a class organization, right? I mean, they might even give him a little ceremonial sack thing or something like that.
Oh, yeah. It'll be like Strahan getting the record against Brett Favre.
Yeah. Like something like that. That's a good angle. That's at least something that is truly bettable and actionable stuff for a game that brings nothing to the table, really.
The problem The problem, by the way, with Niners first half is it's juiced to -7.5, which is a lot. So I think I actually like 49ers first quarter better than that at -3.5.
We're digging deep here, fellas. We're trying.
Yeah, we are. It's week 18, guys. Come on.
Los Angeles Rams, Seattle Seahawks. We know Seattle Seahawks, all the motivation in the world. They are going to need some help, but they can try to get in the playoffs with a win here. They're 6-point favorites over the Rams. 41.5 is the total in this one. So, Stephen, as we go in, the question becomes, this is definitely a bloated line because the Seahawks probably shouldn't be 6-point favorites over any team other than maybe the Texans and Colts at this point. So it is bloated due to the motivational factor. The Rams have shown at least minimal signs of life. I mean, Baker Mayfield's probably playing for either a backup contract in LA, or I know Matt Stafford says he's coming back. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Maybe this elbow thing is more than we think or whatever. Like, I don't know. So, I mean, I don't think the Rams are going to lay down here in this one, unlike some of these other games and whatnot. So I don't know. Six seems a little heavy for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, the difference between 4.5 and 6 is basically not much, right? We're a lot of dead numbers in between there. So that's why I've had a hard time pulling the trigger. This was 6.5, I think, earlier this week. So some sharp money has come in on the Rams here to cover. I was really impressed by the Seahawks last week. I mean, I think they're a team that I can't figure out week to week at this point, because they went through stretches where we were really impressed and they were performing above our expectations. And then for a month, they looked like the team we all thought they were coming into the season. So each and every week, even with the season on the line this week, I'm just not sure which version of them we are going to get. So I'm having a hard time being confident in either side in this game, because if we get the best version of the Seahawks against a Rams team that's devoid of talent at this point, yeah, I could see them covering the spread. But how do we know which team we're going to get each week?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly is the question here. Adam, what do you feel basically overall of the Rams in general? I mean, of all these teams that are completely dead and entering these games completely dead, I think maybe the Rams have the most life to me in any of it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. Like I do think there are a bunch of guys who are now getting playing opportunity. So again, this isn't like a team that is going to have a bunch of stars that are completely unmotivated and it's kind of like, to hell with this, whatever, let's get to Cabo. It's like, no, it's a whole bunch of second stringers because all the good guys are hurt, right? So I think the Rams probably bring a decent effort.
I agree with you. We just watched the Rams lose to the Chargers, and I think that score is a little bit misleading on the 31-10. If you watched a lot of that game last week, the defense just got worn down over time because the offense really wasn't producing much. But that was a competitive first half from Los Angeles Rams. And I wouldn't lose the thread that this is still a divisional game, right? This is still teams that know each other very well. So I think Seahawks would be the side if I wanted to. I apologize. I think taking the points with the Los Angeles Rams would be the side if I were to take a side in this game. And I think under would probably be maybe the look that I would prefer to that, just by a little bit.
Dallas Cowboys and the Washington Commanders. It is Cowboys 7-point favorites right now over the Washington Commanders. Commanders turning it over to rookie Sam Howell, as they should. Because why? Well, they're dead. Go see what you get in the guy you drafted him. So let's go ahead and see what the dude can do. Maybe I have my greatest CLV ticket of all time. I do have a Cowboys plus 4.5 ticket in my account on a look ahead line, and then also took them again at 3.5-point favorites in this one when it was pretty obvious that the Commanders were going to make the move to the rookie, as they should. Again, like, you should see what you have in a guy, throw him out there, see what you got. Now, 41 is the total in this thing. Of course, as we know, Cowboys still do have something to play for because it's going on the same time as the Eagles game. Now they could pull everything off at halftime or whatever and all that, but like at least first half, they're going to be going full bore here after this Commanders team. So that is out there. Adam, look, Sam Howell, there was rumors he could have been a first rounder or, whatever. He didn't play that great in his senior year, fell in the draft, but in the preseason, he had a game. He threw for 280 yards. He like ran for 62 yards, stuff like that. I mean, like there is at least something there with him. I don't think he's like completely devoid of talent or anything. The problem is it's his first start against a highly motivated Cowboys team.
Yeah, I think the only way to get involved here is first half, and I don't even love the number at 3.5 because I think you're exactly right about the Dallas team here. You're looking at a situation where the Dallas Cowboys are probably not going to have more than a quarter to a quarter and a half of time in which the Philadelphia Eagles are not trucking the New York Giants. So I think if you want to play this, the way that I would look at it now that the number is what it is with Dallas laying 7 is if you see Dallas get ahead early as a live bet, the algorithm is not going to be able to price in Dallas pulling all of its starters if Philadelphia gets to the point where they're blowing out the Giants. So if you find, pardon me, Dallas with an early touchdown and you get something like Washington plus 10.5, then I think you're probably looking good for the full game because in the end, I don't think Dallas is going to end up playing its starters because of the fact that Philadelphia is going to truck the Giants.
Steven, here we go again. Full touchdown, Cowboys on the road at the Commanders.
Dallas -0.5 first quarter. I think you can get -110 at most spots on that. That's the angle I like here. Even if you take all the other situations out of play and look at this just on paper, EPA per play and success rate in the first quarter this season, Dallas is top 10. They're 6th and 7th specifically. Washington in the first quarter, bottom 20. And the mindset behind this bet is the team script their first 15 plays. Dallas has been pretty good at scripting their plays. Washington has been pretty bad at scripting their plays. And now you insert a quarterback making his first career NFL start. That's my favorite angle in this game. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And our final game of Week 18, the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, as we sit right now, 4.5 to 5 in favor of the Packers, 49 to 49.5 is your total. Guys, this one's pretty simple for me. I am going to be watching the Seattle game. If Seattle is winning that game, I am going to bet the Packers before this thing gets on the other side of 6. If this is somehow in some way the Rams are going to beat or are beating the Seahawks, I'm going to come in. I'm going to take the points with the Lions. Very simple handicap for me because we're all human beings. This was a Lions team, thought they were dead in the season, rally back, think they're going to get an opportunity to play for the playoffs. And then it could literally be sitting there watching their opportunity evaporate in front of their very eyes. I know they're pros. I know they're professionals, but Adam, you go out on the field after you've just been kicked in the gut like that. It's impossible to give your best effort. It's impossible to play up. And we know the Packers still have to win the game regardless. So for me, pretty simple. Seahawks are going to win. I'm going to bet the Packers. Seahawks are going to lose. I'm going to bet the Lions.
Well, if we're going to make this handicap about motivation, not talking about on field, then I don't know that the Lions lose all of their motivation because they know that this is it, right? Like it's not a win you're in, but it's sure as hell a win and you knock Green Bay out. And so I think Dan Campbell can probably get his guys rallied up to the idea of you want to keep your division rival out of the playoffs, go out there and kick their butts. So I don't think they lose all motivation. Do they have the same motivation? Absolutely not. The Detroit Lions offense continues to play very well, and I'm more inclined to take points with them than I am to lay it with the Packers, simply because I think that the Detroit Lions, ultimately, you're getting skewed a little bit by that Carolina game with them, but the EPA numbers are all there. The success numbers are all there. I think they're going to be able to move the ball against Green Bay. That's really where my handicap starts and ends.
Steven, Jared Goff, highest passer rating and best touchdown to interception ratio in the NFL since week 10. He's thrown 15 touchdowns, hasn't thrown a pick since week 10. Is Jared Goff here? What do you see in this one?
Two different angles. The first would be a money line parlay because with week 18, sometimes you get some correlation, right, on potential outcomes. So if you were to bet Seattle money line parlayed with Green Bay money line right now, you can get pretty close to plus 100. And I think maybe like minus 105 if you're shopping around. There might be some of those. But that price, as we sit here right now, is a lot cheaper than it will be if on the Green Bay money line if Seattle wins the game. If Seattle wins and Detroit's eliminated, Green Bay is going to get steamed a little bit. And that money line price is going to be a lot more expensive. So at least in terms of correlated outcomes and value, there is incentive to lock that money line parlay in right now if you think the Packers are going to win the game. For me, though, on the spread, I'm only interested in Detroit at this point, but I'm not betting it right now because if Seattle wins the game, then we're going to get a even bigger number, I think, on Detroit than the 4.5 we're seeing right now. I think there's a 5 popping. So I'm just going to wait and see what kind of number I get on Detroit, because even if Seattle loses, you guys can tell me if you disagree. If Seattle loses and Detroit is alive to make the playoffs, I still don't really see this number sinking to like 3.5 by any means.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. Like I said, for me, I like the Lions if they have something to play for. I like the Packers if they don't. That's basically a pretty simple handicap for me in this one. Guys, everything we do absolutely free here on the line. So please support us. Not monetarily, just hit that subscribe button down below. That's all we're asking. Give us a thumbs up and let us know in the comment section.
You can support me monetarily.
How you're playing Week 18. What's your favorite bet? What's some of the angles that you're looking at as well? Super, super interesting. Guys, we'll continue this through the playoffs all the way to the Super Bowl. So we're not going anywhere quite yet. For Adam, for Steven, good luck on all your bets here in Week 18.